When it comes to drawing, the Wacom Mobile Studio Pro makes no compromises. It is hands down the best drawing experience I have had on a Windows tablet to date. The Mobile Studio Pro is a full Windows 10 computer with a touchscreen and Wacom's new Pro Pen 2. In this review, I'm going to be looking at it from the point of view of an illustrator.
I drew these teeth.
It comes in two sizes, the 13 and the larger 16. I've been using the 16 over the last week and I've really been enjoying it. It has a full 4K display and looks great from a distance, and it looks even better when you're hovering directly over it. The screen has a matte finish that gives it a little bit of tooth when you're drawing on it. It feels pretty good, not quite as good as the texture you'll find on the Wacom Intuos tablets, but it's just enough texture where you're never gonna feel like your stylus is ice skating on a glass screen. The first thing you're gonna wanna do when you get the tablet is calibrate the stylus. Wacom is gonna walk you through this when you set it up. I would recommend that you get into the position that you're going to be using the tablet in most, and then you're going to just tap the center of these little targets and you're off to the races. If at any point in time you want to recalibrate it, that's no problem. You could just jump into the settings and do that. You will hear a lot of illustrators talk about something called parallax. That is the distance between where the tip of your pen is and where the cursor appears on the screen. Oftentimes with these kind of tablets, the further you get from the center of the screen, the more inaccurate the pen becomes. But even in the far corners, it seemed pretty spot on to me. This is partly because of the calibration and partly because Wacom has reduced the thickness of the glass above the screen. So there's very little difference between where your stylus is and where the cursor appears underneath it. I ran through all my basic drawing tests. I was drawing diagonal lines, looking for hiccups when I was drawing circles, things like that. It passed with flying colors. For those of you who have been watching my videos over the last month or so, I've talked a lot about the Surface Pro and the jittery pen that happens when you draw really, really slow. And of course, since this is the internet, a lot of people called me out and said, hey, your hand naturally jitters, so that is going to happen. It's not the Surface Pro's fault. But take a look at this. Buttery, smooth, diagonal lines, no jitters. Look at that line. That is a beautiful line, and I demand an apology, internet. I'm gonna be waiting a long time, aren't I? Shaky lines aside, the thing that really sets this apart from something like the Surface Pro are the hotkeys that are located along the side. I love physical buttons. Even though there are apps for Windows that give you on-screen buttons, I just don't think it's the same. There's something I just love about tangible buttons that you can rest your hand on and that your muscle memory can get used to the location of, that you can customize, and you can do all that here. On most Windows devices that I have used, I have needed a keyboard for something. Using a program like Photoshop without a keyboard or keyboard shortcuts is totally possible, but it's kind of like driving a car with no doors. Yeah, it works, but you're not gonna take the corners too fast. The express keys on the Mobile Studio Pro make this the first Windows tablet I have ever used for hours on end without touching the keyboard. It's a little design detail, but it's the kind of design detail that just makes the experience specifically for illustrators really nice. So onto the touchscreen. Like I mentioned before, I got really comfortable using the hotkeys and that little ring thing to change my brush size. And that freed up my other hand to pinch and zoom or pan around my drawing or sketch. The palm rejection also works really well. Every so often I would accidentally change a layer with the side of my hand, but that was kind of rare. And I never experienced any extra marks on my drawing canvas when the palm of my hand would slide onto it. One thing I should point out, since we are talking about the screen, is it does get a little warm in the lower right hand corner, which also happens to be the place where my hand rests. That's probably where the processor is, underneath the screen. Now I use the word warm, not hot. It's not gonna get boiling hot, it's not gonna burn your hand, but it is noticeably warmer than the rest of the screen. This stylus right here is the Wacom Pro Pen 2. Wacom says that it is 4 times more accurate. I can see that. That there is virtually no lag. Depends on the program. It has natural tilt support. Confirmed. No parallax. Nailed it. 4 times more pressure sensitivity. Yep. So with all these fancy features and all this pressure sensitivity over 8,000 levels, the real question is, can I tell the difference? No. I can't. The thing is Wacom's pens were really good before, so when you double the pressure sensitivity or dramatically improve the accuracy, you've reached the point of diminishing returns where, yes, technically you have all this extra stuff, but you're just not really gonna notice. But I guess for people who are sticklers for this sort of thing and notice that kind of pen pressure down to the most minute of details, you've got it here. I'd also like to point out here that levels of pressure sensitivity is probably one of the most overrated stats when it comes to drawing tablets. It has more to do with how the pressure is calibrated on the pen than it does the levels of pressure sensitivity you have to begin with. I used a tablet earlier this year that had over 2000 levels of pressure sensitivity, but the drivers kind of stunk, at least on the Mac, and so the pressure blew out really hard. So having all those levels of pressure sensitivity wasn't really all that useful. Whereas I used the Surface Pro 3 pen for ages, and that only has 256 levels of pressure sensitivity, which really sounds inadequate, but in actual use, it's not. It actually works really well. So much just depends on the apps that you're using and how they handle that pressure sensitivity and the drivers and all that other stuff. That's something that Wacom over the years has paid a lot of attention to, done a great job with, and they continue to do that here. As I was using the pen, I found it to be pretty much flawless. I got a great range of lines from thick to thin. Drawing quickly didn't create any weird shoestring effects. Drawing slow produced no wobbles at any particular angle, and I could hold a consistent amount of pressure going around curves, drawing circles, or going anywhere on the screen while drawing. I did find some lag, but I don't necessarily blame it on the pen or the technology. A lot of that lag that I was finding were like Photoshop brushes that would need to render. Also, in general, Adobe Illustrator was a little bit buggy. I found that I had a lot of lag on just the most basic pens there, and I'm not sure why. But Illustrator had a lot of problems for me. For example, as soon as I started drawing with the pen, I would lose like any kind of touch gestures on the screen as well. I posted all this in an Adobe forum to find some help, and they told me it sounded like a bug and I should tell Adobe about the bug, and I did. So yeah, we'll see how that gets fixed in the next few weeks, months, and years. So far I have heaped effusive praise upon this device, but are there any cons? Yes, there are cons. In fact, I wouldn't really call them cons so much as just trade-offs that you have to make with any device, some things you should be aware of. The only thing on the device that I thought was kind of like meh were the speakers. I didn't think they were very good. They were kind of echoey, and they were located around the back of the device, which just kind of amplifies that echoiness and lack of quality in them. So if you like your music and sound, bring along a good pair of headphones and you'll be good to go. Like the new MacBooks, this device only has USB-C ports. They're smaller than your standard USB ports. There are 3 of them along the side. The power adapter this comes with uses one of these ports for charging. If you're anything like me, you have absolutely nothing that actually plugs into a USB-C port. I ended up buying 2 little adapters on Amazon.com. Work out pretty well. In fact, they worked out really well. If they were even a millimeter wider, they wouldn't fit together at the same time while plugged in, but they just cozily fit perfectly. There's also a little hole on the side where you can plug in this little handy dandy pencil holder thingy. The problem here is that I can't have anything like the power charger plugged in at the same time while I'm holding the pen in the holder. So it's a cool idea, it's just not quite executed well enough. It would make more sense along the side or the top or behind your ear or on your cat. Don't do that. Several folks have asked me about the fan. I guess on the Companion too, it was kind of loud, or maybe not loud, it just had this high-pitched squeal that drove people nuts. I never used the Companion 2, so I don't know how loud it was. On this, you can definitely hear the fan. I definitely would not call it loud, and it never distracted me in any way, shape, or form. In fact, comparing it to my MacBook Pro's fan, which seems to be on most of the time, it's quite a bit quieter. What do you think when you see this number? I have to point this out as a trade-off because the prices are crazy high, but at the same time, this is a premium product. The only thing that I wish is that there were more configurations, because there is such a price difference between the tablet that I got and the next level up. For those of you who were on my live stream when I was kind of pre-reviewing this last week, you probably noticed when the stream came to a grinding halt when I opened one more program because I ran out of RAM. If I want to upgrade this to 16 gigs of RAM, it costs... Now that $600 also gets you a bigger hard drive, it gets you a better processor, and even gets you a 3D camera, which sounds kind of cool, even though I wouldn't use it. I just want more RAM, man. That's not a RAM noise. The device also lays flat on a table. There's no kind of kickstand or way to prop it out without actually purchasing Wacom's extra accessory to help you do that. It has 3 positions and it costs... I had this old UC Logic stand lying around and I think it works great for this. It has these little rubber doodads on the bottom that collect dirt like nobody's business, but other than that, I can set it at a bunch of different angles and it stays. Another great feature of this tablet is the ability to plug it into any computer, or Windows or Mac, and use it as a Cintiq. If you have a computer with a USB-C connector already, you can do this without any adapters. If you do not, you're going to have to purchase a Wacom link, and those are available on Wacom's website for before. Alright, I'm done doing the wheezing thing. Actually, as of the making of this video, they're not available to purchase yet. I don't know when they will be. And that was also kind of a bummer that it's not available yet, because that's a huge selling point and feature of this tablet that I was unable to test out. Another thing to be aware of is the portability of this computer. It is portable, it's definitely portable, but it also weighs 4.5 pounds. If you decide to go with a smaller one, I think that's going to be way more portable. It only weighs 2.8 pounds. After fiddling with an Android tablet over the course of the last month and using the Surface and iPad Pro before that, this feels really, really heavy. Also with the 16, it's quite a bit wider, so it's not going to fit in like your standard laptop bag, so you're gonna have to make arrangements if you're gonna be porting it around with you. And also, unlike the Surface Pro, which has its own keyboard that attaches and folds in nicely, you're probably gonna also be hauling around some kind of external keyboard with you as well if you're traveling with this device. Another piece of the portability puzzle is battery life, and I thought the battery life was adequate. I would say when I'm drawing, I'm probably getting 3 to 3.5 hours without changing any of like the brightness settings that are just default on the tablet. So like I said before, I don't necessarily see all of these things as bad about the product, just trade-offs and things you need to understand when you're making the kind of purchasing decision for a nice piece of hardware like this. But make no mistake, this is a premium product. It feels great to draw on. It is fun to use, and it really lives up to that premium price tag. And unlike other products out there that are specifically catered to different segments and different audiences, this is really built for creatives. It's really built for drawing, and I think a lot of those elements really come through when you're using it. Wacom really set out to make the best Windows drawing tablet that money can buy, and I think they really pulled it off. And yeah, the prices are high, but it reflects the kind of quality that you're getting. If you're one of those people who spends all day with the stylus hovering over one of these devices and drawing, this is a good investment. In my next video, I'm going to be comparing this more directly with the Surface Pro and what some of the pros and cons of both of those devices are. I think they're both great devices, but I figure it's worth putting a video together to kind of put them next to each other and see where each one performs well and that sort of thing. So if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Another way to get a hold of me, as always, is up on Twitter. And if you'd like to support this channel, there's 2 ways to do it. One is go ahead and click one of the Amazon links down below. I get a little bit of the money from each one of the purchases you make, whether it's the item I linked or not, or you can support me over on Patreon. Every little bit helps, and it helps me get new hardware to review and to continue doing this channel. Thank you guys for watching until the end. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in a couple of days.